Welcome. Oh, what's happening, everybody? How y'all doing? Happy Wednesday. Happy Vertex Day. Today is episode 28, and we are going to be talking with Alex Ferror. Alex Ferror is an amazing painter and muralist. He's from Brazil, been here for quite some time. He is one of Atlanta's favorites. He is such an amazing person and has such a fun and refreshing mission with his artwork. Somebody that genuinely wants to spread like joy and just good messaging and wisdom through his work. And it's incredibly inspiring. Every conversation I've ever had with him has always been just enlightening in one way or another. I mean, he's a perfect podcast guest. Work on getting our guest on the call here. We're gonna get things going. We'll get the show on the road. How you
Yeah,
feeling
yeah,
today?
yeah. Feeling good, man. Feeling good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm at home. I wasn't sure if I would be at the studio or not. I'm just home. Just decided not to try not to, you know, like uh, beat Atlanta traffic and
uh,
take the chance of staying stuck.
yeah. That traffic is no joke, especially
Yeah.
around what 4 or 5 ish. I mean, it's 6 right
Mhm.
now, but trying to trying to get there and yeah. You'd have been sitting there
Yeah,
right
that's what
now.
I was considering going there between 4 and 5 and challenging the
Mm.
traffic. I like specifically time. It's all good. I'm home. I'm cozy. Like took a shower. I'm like on a in a couch. Actually, I made my setup in a couch, but have fresh water, my sketchbook, a pencil, all I
Oh
need,
yeah.
and,
Yeah,
and
you good to go.
yeah,
You
we're good
good
to
to
go.
go. Well, that's what's up, man. I appreciate you for being on the show today. Man, I'm excited to have this conversation and even posting your flyer, it was getting a lot of love. So I'm sure a bunch of people are excited as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me, and yeah, I saw the comments, the likes, and all great people. The love is back to you and to your audience. A lot of
Hmm.
people that I love there.
Absolutely, man. So I know like we've had plenty of conversations just over the years, but when I sat and thought about, like what I don't really know about you, it starts really in your past. And like I know a lot of like what you are up to nowadays, but I want to know more of, like what early what was your early life like, and like where did you grow up, how did you live, like what kind of stuff were you into, were you always an artist, or can you take me back to like chapter one?
First, first of all, I'm from São Paulo, Brazil, right? I I grew up, even though I was born in the capital, in the big city. When I was around 6, my parents moved to a coastal town, like less than an hour away from São Paulo. So I would still go back and forth. Like my cousins would be mad at me because for them, of course, man, school vacation, you want to go to the beach. I was living at the beach, so it's school vacation. I wanted to go to the big city, like far from the beach, and they were mad at me, like, "What you're doing? Like you're running our vacations." But I grew up in this coastal town that shaped a lot of who I am. Like even though I am from a big city, São Paulo is massive. It's the largest city in the southern hemisphere in South America. But Praia Grande, the city where I grew up, much smaller. Like cooler. Like I played a lot on the street. Like I didn't play a lot of video games. I was always late on the video game.
Hmm.
Like, but because I was always on the street, man, I was like playing sports. Like going into adventures. Like very imaginative plays all the time with my friends or by myself, right? I'm not the only child, but I'm the only child from my mom and dad, so they both had previous relationships and they had older siblings. But they're much older than me. So I grew up by myself. I grew up as an only child, even though it was not. So that was good and bad. Like I didn't have that, like sibling, like situation. Rainy days was always terrible for me because all my friends were at home playing with their siblings and I was by myself. But that's when drawing became a big part of who I am. Like I was always drawing, and I was to a point that even on the sunny days when all the kids would be playing outside, sometimes I would just choose to spend the weekend drawing, and doing my
Mhm.
thing.
And
And so, yeah, that was most of my childhood. And then eventually, when when I was a teenager, like on high school, when I started developing my like grown up taste for music and everything, I had a band in high school. I was a lead singer on a band.
really,
Uh,
see,
I'm showing some fun facts here that I probably never said before.
interesting.
But yeah, I was rock and roll band. Actually, my very first band was a Nirvana cover band,
Hmm.
and then uh, only grunge. That was mid to late '90s. I'm that old, and then later on we started playing whatever was playing the radio because we wanted to get gigs and be paid to play, which actually never happened. We weren't that good, But anyways, it was fun. It was a nice moment of my life, and that's also when I would go more often and by myself to São Paulo on any opportunity I would have. I was working already, so I had my money to go to like take a bus and go to São Paulo at any opportunity I had. I had family there, so I could go at any time. And that's when I started paying more and more attention to street art. And São Paulo is the mecca of street art in South America, right? In Brazil for sure. Like the first street art happening in in Brazil was São Paulo, and probably the first one in South America as well. But that's it. And then my early life as a professional before getting into art, I worked in the fashion industry. I started as a salesman in a clothing retail store, and then I built up my career and I ended up last job I had before I first moved to Atlanta in 2015. I was a sales director in a big brand. Actually a holding of Brazilian brands and some international brands. I had, depending on the time of the year, because of the season, I had up to 300 people under my umbrella, and like had stores in up to 18 different states. Would travel a lot. It was super crazy and insane. But that's why, and also try to connect some dots. That why I always see a lot of. That's why clothing is so important on my characters. You always see a lot of patterns. See a lot of detail put in that. I feel like, especially a few years ago, I realized that how working in fashion for such a long time influenced my art
Mm.
later on. Even though my work is very childlike and not very, you know, like, uh, like I want to say it is fashion oriented. I can't deny that it's part of who I am, and it's part of my personality. I like fashion a lot too.
And I want to go back just a little bit before you said that you I mean you have siblings, but because of the age difference, like you ended up growing up um basically by yourself. What was your relationship like with your parents?
Well, depends on the time. I was always very close to my mom and my mom's side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
I was never really close to my dad. I was when I was younger, probably when I was smaller, but then when I became a teenager, not so much. Uh, like I now that I'm older, I can see a lot of good things I got from my dad, but it took me a while to learn that. Unfortunately, I would disagree with him on many things, including how to be a good husband, how to be a good not only a good dad, because you're biased, you always want the best dad, but I wanted, like how to be a good neighbor, how to be a good, uh, you know, like stepdad to my older sister, how to be, so unfortunately, I mean, the bad news is I did not have a great relationship with my dad. I was never a good friend with my dad. On the good news is that, I mean, thank goodness, I think I have I always had a good understanding, and I took it in a way that I got from him a lot of examples on how I did not want it to be as a
Mm,
person, as a human being. As I'm not a dad, but how I would like to be as a dad if I was a dad, and how to be a good neighbor, how to be a good husband, how to be, like I try to provide what I lacked, as a kid. But also I had a lot of good things from him. My dad was like an avid reader, very smart, very clever, and I think I got some of his good traits. But the way I use these good traits is different the way he used his. You know, yeah, he passed more than 10 years ago, and we were kind of in a moment trying to, not trying to, he was trying to reconnect to get closer again. At the time, we were not geographically closer anymore. I moved to another city. He moved to another city. So we were not, but he was trying to approach, but like that's how life goes, right?
can't always make it happen all the time, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. But again, I mean, I mean, that relationship uh, shaped a lot of who I am, and honestly, I'm pretty proud of who I am, and having that as an example was good for me. I just choose to think it that way. And of course, after years of therapy, that didn't come right away. So
Yeah.
that helped.
And I'm glad that you were able to see it in like a positive, like kind of take it the best way you could, you know, like seeing silver linings and stuff like that, using things to your advantage. You know, you're saying that it was like stuff that you're seeing things, and instead of like just being upset at them, like you're trying to see like, okay, this is just fuel for me to like be the person that
Correct.
I wish that I had, you know. So it's a good outlook on it. And
Yeah.
what your parents do like for work and stuff like that?
So my mom was always home. I mean, she did house cleaning for a while, and but I mean, I remember my mom, like keeping up with the household most of the time. She was home all the time. My dad, one of the things that he was very proud of, that he retired really early in life for time of work, for how long he had worked. So when I started understanding the world, my dad was already retired, and but he always worked, he always got jobs, but his profession, the profession that he retired from, he was, I think the best way to describe that, he was the person back in the day when everything was uh, printed and you didn't have computers to correct the text. My dad was the computer to correct the text. So I mean, everything that was printed, he worked in a graphic company, and everything that before going to print, my dad was the person who would make the edits and correct and pick up, like typos and this type of things. I mean, his eye from to typos and to like grammatical mistakes were, it was like a radar. It was insane. So can you imagine how hard, how fun it was the homework for me, right?
Oh, I can only
So,
imagine.
and again, yeah, but again, I told you earlier that I can't see nowadays. I mean, I can see how some of his tweets influence me. Man, I'm telling you, it's annoying, even in English. And of course, I mean, I make mistakes, and you will hear a lot of them tonight. But it's funny how my eye work for like text. If I see
Mhm.
a typo, it just like pops for me. because that I was trained by him, and I give him full credit on that. You know,
Mm.
like in Portuguese, I'm terrible. I mean, if I see a typo, I get it immediately.
What were some of the other, if you can remember, some of the other lessons or values that your parents kind of put into you from an early age?
Oh man! And then now it's time to put my mom on the spotlight here because I feel like I'm not only my mom, but I feel like I was because of that. I always had trust issues. I never had like male figures except for my godfather and later on my brother-in-law, and none of them are what my godfather passed and my brother-in-law were not super close anymore. Just like like how life goes. But I was very connected to the women of my family. So I mean, I always say that I was raised by the women of my family, and that's how it was. Because earlier on, when none of them were around because they were working and all that, when I was very little, I mean, uh, I was always either with my female cousins or with my aunts, with my grandmother, which had zero patience with kids. But like probably she saw like her one of her several grandchildren, and by several I mean my grandparents on my mom's side had 14 kids. So
Mm.
I have a shitload of aunts and uncles, man, and all that. Like big family on my mom's side, and at the same time I was with nowhere when people were like sometimes nobody was around, and then I had my aunts and I had my grandmother. But so I feel like I and and that's again big part of who I am, and I'm very proud of that. But speaking in the main lessons I got from my mom is like my mom is very like honorable, like she's very like honest in to her core. So like you don't mess with it. I mean, treat other people's things, work, and whatever. Like if it was yours. Like when I became a leader, when I started leading teams and taking care of other people's, like uh, I want to say store or businesses. To me, was like, how can I treat this like if it was mine? Like I would. So I think that was something that my mom made become ingrained in my mind. But also, uh, you're not you're not less and worse or smaller than anyone else, but you're definitely not better or bigger than anyone else. So treat everyone from the janitor to the president in the same way. And I feel like that I still carry that, like I really try to make no distinction. And, like human nature is a bitch sometimes. We have to keep an eye on how we, like instinctively behave. But I feel like as part of our evolution is exactly that, like try to keep ourselves on check all the time, and try to behave in the right way. So I feel like this is some of the things I feel like, treat everyone with respect, and like be kind, don't be an ass, and don't disappoint me. And I was very and I because of what I already told you about my dad and their relationship, all to me was like, man, I cannot make my like my mom or my aunts or my big sister disappointed. I have to make them proud. So I was
Mm.
always, man, like I was never in trouble. I wish I had like crazy stories to tell. I don't have many. Like even on street art, people always have oh man, I started by bombing trains and doing illegal and shit. No, I started with the workshop, and I know we're gonna get that. But but that just illustrates how I was always trying to stay out of trouble. Like I was trying, like and that was boring sometimes because I wanted to do, like that's that age that you kind of the nature calls you to to go into trouble, But I was always had that voice saying, no, I'm doing differently. I don't want to disappoint them, and yeah, and that's how we went, I think.
I definitely can understand you when you say like when you don't have many like situations where you got in trouble growing up, because like I was the youngest of four. So I'm like, I saw my siblings get in trouble for everything. So it was like playing Minesweeper. Like, oh, okay, they did that and they got in trouble. Oh, they got that and got put on punishment. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure I don't do that. And so like I was able to just like kind of go down the path that they carved, and like they'd always be like, man, he don't never get in trouble. He ain't. Look, man, I seen you do it. Why would I go behind you and do the same thing?
And
So definitely
then,
get you.
well, and I gotta say, I gotta be honest and transparent here. There was that time in life also where I was kind of the mastermind of some of the plans, like, but I was
Mm.
always like, like I would give the idea, I wouldn't do anything because I wouldn't get in trouble, but I was like, have you imagined if you could do this, this, and this? And I knew that would be trouble,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't do. I know my cousins or my friends would say like, heck yeah, let's do it. And I was, never the one to be blamed on that. Am I proud of that? Not exactly, but it's how it went. I just wanted to stay out of trouble, out of the
Mm-hmm.
spotlight.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if you felt this way, but it was just one of those things where, like, I don't know. I never saw it to be worth it on the other side because I'm the one hearing, like, hearing my siblings getting the whooping or hearing, seeing them be on punishment for, however long. And I'm like, man, nah, like, I would want to do that, but then, like, then I got to go through that. I'm smooth
Yeah,
on it.
I
Like,
mean, and even that, man. I mean, I come from a different time on parenting. My parents are. Oh, I mean, I told you they had their previous relationships. My dad was retired when I was born. When I was born, or when I was young. So I mean, they come from a different time, and I come from a different place where like some things were nowadays are changing, but some things were socially accepted back in the day. I would have my ass kicked, especially by my mom, even not being in trouble, just because she told me to go back home at 5 and I was there 5:05 and she had a rough day. Sometimes I
mm-hmm.
was like, what?
Yeah.
But like no hard feelings at all. Like that was never a problem to me. It actually quite the opposite. I was fine with that, and then, but yeah, I think that was it, and I can see that a lot on you too. I feel like like you're always
Yeah.
cool, and like
Yeah, my
yeah.
parents, my parents were about that life too, but they never did it excessively. That's the part that I can appreciate. It was only ever like I never got a whooping and thought like I didn't deserve that. Like I always felt like,
Yeah.
yeah, I got this. I had this one coming. And it was just a good
Same.
to me, it was just a good teacher because I'm like, this is really painful and I'm not trying to feel this again. So I'm gonna get right. I'm just gonna do what I need to do to avoid all this entirely. And I know nowadays, like, if you hear about parents doing it, then it's like it's pretty taboo now, but um it worked for me. Now, will I want to do it to my children? I don't think so. But
Yeah.
I can't lie. I can't say that it doesn't work. It did work for me. It did.
Well, yeah, we're here. We're here to give the testimony,
Yep.
right? Yeah, it's same. I mean, it was never abusive or anything, like that. But it's it's all good. It's all water under the bridge. Also, I mean,
Yeah. It was
those
what
whoops, right?
just what it was.
None of those were treated in therapy at all. So they're not trauma.
Right.
We're good.
And then in terms of um just living out there, like what are some differences just in the type of people or just in the general motive of people that you feel are different? Like I feel like especially nowadays people talk about the states as like this is the place where you just gotta hustle, hustle, hustle. This is the place to do business, get money, and this and this. But other places aren't like that. And I'm curious to know how the people where you grew up like were like if they were any different, or if how they felt about things, what they valued.
Yeah, I mean, the town where I grew up. I mean, it's a coastal town. It was a small town. Now it's much bigger. It's like it's kind of have a has a hype on that city right now. My mom still lives there. Joy's parents still live there. and and Joy's my wife. I mean, you know her, but probably whoever listens to this doesn't. But it's a town where it's very it's very humble. The neighborhood where I grew up was very humble. The people were very humble. They were hard workers. They would, like go. I mean, everybody would go out in the morning and work hard. I just feel like the difference between. But then, and anyway, so that's like poor people work hard to put food on the table. Like uh, and not a lot of ambition. Like not a lot of a real idea on the opportunities out there. Like some of them is like very suburban life where you're far from the big city and you're kind of afraid of the big city. You're intimidated by that, and whatever you do for a trade for a living, that's what you probably want to do for 10, 20 years. And again, I mean, I was lucky to have my family in Sao Paulo in the big city, and even though my family, the place where I come from in Sao Paulo is also a very simple, humble neighborhood, I don't know, man. We just have a different eye. You know that, right? I mean, we can come, like we have some appreciation for beauty that is different, I think, for something that is cool, something that all my cousins, all my friends would see in a way, I would see in a different way. And then, so I feel like two things that actually opened a lot my mind and made me create that park, that wanting more and wanted to see something different than that, and not. I actually never felt 100% as being a part of that small town, and every time I would go to São Paulo again, I mean, my vacations I would go to the big city, far from the and vacations in Brazil is like it's always summer, but people want to go to the beach. I wanted to go to the sea. I wanted to go like take a subway, like see art, see like go to coffee shops and like do like this type of thing, go to parks and you know and so the two things that actually I think are a big role on that is first having this family in São Paulo and having the chance to go all the time, and the second is when uh, MTV started. Like they had the MTV Brazil, and that was the 90s, and then they were very firm. They have like of course, a lot of music back in the day. MTV was all about music, uh, the good or the golden years of MTV. Um, but MTV Brazil was very like behavior, a lot of like youth, like very political, very uh, lifestyle, young art, visual art. Like I had all the same like here probably, but like some of the shows from here we would have them there with subtitles, which also helped me with learning English and all that. But what I mean by that is when every time I was exposed to what I would see in São Paulo, and every time I would see what I would see on MTV, I was like, well, that's what I want. Like I want a creative life. I want to be, or at least I want to be surrounded by creatives. I don't want to be in this small town. Like I love my family. I love my cousins, but I would not want to be living the same life that they would live. And even when I came back later on, already as an adult to back to São Paulo to work when I started like grinding and working on and growing on my fashion career in my like retail clothing career. Uh, I knew I wanted to be in a big city. I knew I wanted to be in a place where things would happen, that I would have, like culture and like I would be exposed to different things. And yeah, and that's how it went. I think I give you very long answers.
No, you're all good, man. This is a long answer friendly podcast. I'm loving it.
There we
Um
go. I got your then.
and it man, so what that answer makes me think about is like, you're in a town where you're saying a lot of the people were like cool with what they had, and so they were they weren't really looking to like to get more, or be more, or go further. And so as somebody who was like that, I mean, were there like friends you had that were like what was that friction like when you kind of realized that like, okay, I kind of want more, but everybody around me is like smooth with this life and I gotta start making some waves around here. Like, were you starting to like did you fall out with people or did was there any like people trying to like kind of push your dream down? Um, because it can feel
No,
really like frustrating sometimes when like you wanna like I'm the type of person that wants to like to go, but I also want to like bring people with me or like encourage people next to me. And if those people aren't really game for that, like that can be something that's pretty frustrating for me where I'm like, don't y'all see this? Like, look at all this cool stuff. I'll be like, don't y'all wanna like chase after this with me? And then they're like, no. And you're like, dang it. That was just that's like frustration for me. But did you have anything like that?
yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I didn't have anyone trying to push me down or anything. I mean, I feel like I was quite independent in that way. And probably that's the thing about like growing up kind of as a young child,
Mm-hmm.
an only child. Like I would do my thing anyways. I wouldn't have anyone near me to do my thing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
would sometimes go out and play, or sometimes go out and get inside and draw. Whatever I would do, I wouldn't count on anyone to do with me, and I wouldn't. I know that whatever I would do wouldn't impact in anyone's life. So, I would do anyway what I wanted. Yes, I always wanted to influence people and bring people with me. Like when I started the band, I was like started. I remember I started talking my friends' heads like, "Oh, how about you start learning guitar, man? I think you will
Mm-hmm.
be a cool guitar player." Like I started like,
Uh-huh.
and then I had two friends playing guitar. I say, "Yeah, maybe you should switch to bass." And then tried trying to
uh,
make things work in my favor. And sometimes, I mean, of course it is frustrating when someone doesn't go with you, but I would go ahead and do it anyway. So about the city, man, just to illustrate about the town where I grew up, just to illustrate what I'm telling you, I have friends who met at elementary school. They dated when they were kids, and their they got married and have kids today.
mm-hmm.
And I said elementary school, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and 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 the thing about it is, I mean, I'm not see this in a bad way. What I say by that is like that's how it goes. And to me, I'm partially proud I went in a different direction, and partially jealous of them because they're
Mm-hmm.
happy. Every time I
Mm-hmm.
go there, man, they're happy. Like they have everything they need around them. They have the same friends, which I'm proud of because every time I go there, we all get together, man. It's like, can you imagine? I have friends from elementary, mid, and high school,
Mm-hmm.
like, and work. We all get together. That's the vibe of the small town thing, you know. And I tell them what I'm telling you. I tell them, I say, well, at the same time, I would never want this for my life. I want it to be out, but I'm also, like jealous and I envy you that you have everything you need here, except for me.
Mm-hmm.
I went out. But 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 they always say that. They always say that. I mean, it was clear to us that you wouldn't stick around. It was clear to
Mm-hmm.
us that you would fly away. It was very clear that you did not belong. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel that there's still some of them are still my best friends.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice. It's got to be an interesting like duality where you're like, you're like really happy with how their life is and you're like, dang, like
Yes.
so it's not so much the because when you say that you envy them to a degree, it's not what they have, but it's the fact that they are happy with what they have.
Yeah, definitely not what they have, man. I mean, I don't consider myself an envious person. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, I never, I never, but also I'm human. Okay, I mean, I have ever feeling good and bad that everyone have. But when I feel I'm jealous or I'm envious about someone, it's never about what they have. It's never about like what's material. I never wanted to have the house someone have. I never want to what, but I always say like, man, I love the way this person thinks, and I wish I was that precise. I wish I was that, like I always like the qualities that person has. I would like to have the qualities that person has, not what the person actually, not what they have on their wallets or on their bank account or whatever.
Mhm.
Like I know this is out there and we can go and have, but some of this cues of the or the charisma or the like it's hard. You're born with some of them, like or you acquire them through your life path, and life path are different, like and you cannot force that. You can learn some of them, but you cannot force that, you know.
Mhm.
But also when I feel that, I don't resent. I want to be close to those persons because I feel like they complement me in some ways. They're just like this friends. I mean, they're there. They're living this, like simple life in a way, but they're amazing. They're smart people. They're cool. Like they know a
Mhm.
lot of things. Like they read a lot. They watch movies. They do a lot of cool things. They go to concerts. They just live their life in a different way. They wanted to be close to their family, close to their early friends, close to where they grew up. Like life choices. But again, just like I said first, that I learned from my mother, it doesn't make me any better than any one of them. It's just
Mhm.
different life choices. Like they're as cool as I would like to be. Like they're just cool kids, just like they were my friends.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. And it's cool because it kind of guides you whenever you listen to that internal feel of like when you see somebody and they have a quality that you really enjoy. Like it kind of gives
Yes,
you a sense of like, okay, well, this is what like if you kind of put forth effort into developing that skill, like that kind of pushes you more towards like your most authentic self, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
and
yes,
I
or
think
the
that's really
person you
cool.
want to be, or the person you want to be, because sometimes it takes a lot of work to be the person you want to be. Like it takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of like getting out of your comfort zone, kicking yourself on the butt and all that. It's not always easy, but you have to do that. And then I think that's what we should all do.
Mm. And okay, so you went through school, you started working in the fashion industry, and
Yeah,
I
I
mean, you
started.
had quite a lot
What
going on. What'd you say?
Yeah, what took me to start working on fashion was I started working on the mall,
Mhm.
not in fashion at all. Quite the opposite. Food court. My first job was in a McDonald's,
Oh,
and
wow.
then I
Mhm.
worked there for 3 years, and then I worked on another restaurant uh, on the same mall, on the same food court, the only mall in the town. And that's funny, man, because this person I'm about to mention is so pivotal in everything, especially good things that happen in my life. And now you see how, and we had a conversation. You're my friend. You know a little bit of that, but that's how you see how early in life that happened. So when I was working still in that second restaurant, I see this pretty girl walking around in the mall. She used to work in one of these fashion cool stores, and that was Joy, who's still my wife. And because of her, I ended up getting a job in a very small, like rock and roll T-shirt, rock and streetwear. I have two stories about that: rock and streetwear, skatewear uh, store. That one of her former colleagues became a manager, and then she kind of like, hey, I have the, like they knew me at the time, like we were dating already, and she's like, would you like to, like start selling? You talk, you're nice to people, like you have good, you talk well, you speak well. Would you like to try? I say, yes, I'd like to try. And then I started, and that started everything, you know. And the stories about the little segue for this story is, I remember I got, when I was there, besides selling rock and roll t-shirts, when I was there, I got this skateboard brand t-shirt. The name of the brand was New Skate Rock. It's a Brazilian brand. It doesn't exist anymore, I think. But it had this very cool illustration on it. I love the t-shirt, man. This blue t-shirt. And there was the signature of the artist. You would read Speto, Speto,
Mm-hmm.
Speto. And then there, on the tag of the that T-shirt would tell me that that was a collaboration with the brand and street artists.
Mm-hmm.
And Speto, so you know, for context, is the pioneer of Brazilian street art. When you talk about os gêmeos, or os gêmeos, or we call here, when you talk about the os gêmeos, which is like, or like biggest names in Brazil, in South America, like they're, Speto taught them how to paint. So
Mm.
they started painting, looking up at Speto, you know, and and that was the first time I say, "Whoa, I like that." And every time I would go back to São Paulo, I would start like going after murals and looking for. And then there was this magazine that I would buy with that would have like a lot of art and street art, and some of the street artists would do illustration for that magazine, the Brazilian magazine, and that yeah, and that's a little segue to what decades, not even years, decade later would become what I do for living. And then another way, just to wrap up this chapter of my life, Joy and I dated for 2 years, and then she broke up with me.
Mm.
Like
Hmm.
uh, I wasn't very. I mean, I wasn't. I didn't. I still with that mentality. I didn't have many clear goals in life. I wasn't very ambitious. And she was always like fierce and ambitious and, like force of nature that she still is. And she broke up with me. She said, "Hey, I love you, like, but I have things to do and I don't think you're going anywhere." So she had a course on like, uh, hospitality, and then she got a job in another city in a hotel, something like that. And I said, like, well, I don't think this is gonna, like, work in a long distance. We should broke up. And she broke up, and man, I was devastated. I was so fucked up. That was the worst year of my life. you
Mm.
know but because of that, I said, I can't be in this town anymore, because every time she would go back to the town, I would see her and I would feel miserable. And like, and say, you know what, I need to get out of here. And then my sister was in Sao Paulo at the time, and she said, like, why don't you stay here and spend some time with me? And then I went to Sao Paulo, and then boom, everything changed. And then after a year, we got back together. Like, it started as a long distance thing, but after a year, she moved in with me, and then the rest is history.
Man, and how was that like getting? Because with something like that, it's kind of like the way that it happened. It seemed like, man, it's pretty much over with. Like at that point, especially because it's long distance, y'all are like basically
Yeah,
over with. Like you got to kind of start something else. I mean, what was that like? Like rekindling that connection.
I always make fun, but it's actually not. It's not a joke. It's kind of real. But I do it to poke her, which is, I was miserable for the first months and months. And then I really started having fun and enjoying being single. She realized I was about to be gone, and she came back. She showed up again, and then we got together just because I knew she was the one. But yeah, but that was again pivotal for what happened later in my life. It was not for her, like kicking me out, and like I would probably be there, or I don't know, maybe not. I don't see that I would be in the same uh, town. I was not very happy there, but I would definitely not have the motivation to, I'm very like, "Oh, I'll prove you wrong." I'm always like that. I'll prove you wrong. If you said I
Hmm.
won't do something, man, I'll prove. Like how you see, and that's what I did. Like I feel that way, and that was good in a way. It was painful, but again, we were talking about the mentality and how to interpret what the challenges life brings you. And to me at that point was like, first I have to use this pain I'm feeling to get out of where I am right now, to start a new life, and to prove she's wrong, regardless of what's going to happen. And I mean, all of them work out great, man. I'm proud that happened. I always tell her that the best thing that happened in my life was meeting her. The second best thing was she breaking up with me. You know?
Yeah, man, that's such a powerful motivator too. Like that, like spite, man, like that grit of like, oh, I'm show you. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
it can come from different sources. It can come from, from different directions, but no, it's it'll get you out of the bed for sure. It'll get you off the couch, and like
yeah,
even when you don't feel like it like their voice echoes, through your,
yeah.
just in the memory, like, no, let me get up. Let me do what I gotta do. Cause no, I can't believe that.
Yes, yes.
Hmm. And so then, I mean, but you got pretty far in that fashion company. And I know that you were like, man, I want to be an artist. And I know that was probably something that was really deep within, but how did you learn to like walk away from all that you had? Because you said you were overseeing like 300 plus people, right?
Up to right. My average team was almost 100 people, but then you
Mm-hmm.
have like sales seasons, and then you inflate your teams and all that. But so I think my biggest teams was something about 300 people, 314 people. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Cam, art was put aside in my life for a long time. You like, I mean, uh, I always loved to draw, and I was always the kid or the person in general, regardless of the time, the age. I was always like, man, if I have a blank piece of paper, it doesn't matter, even if it's a document, if it's something important, like you cannot have a pen near me because I will draw on it. I will doodle. Doesn't matter how important that is, you know. And I'm on meetings, man. Even like big meetings, important meetings, I would be doodling, and I would have to explain to people that's not because I'm not paying attention. It's quite the opposite. The more I doodle, more I'm paying attention, more I'm
Mm-hmm.
grounded, you know. And later on, I learned that I have an ADHD brain, and then a lot of it makes sense. Uh, but I was never creating art with an intent of becoming an artist anymore. I mean, uh, I love the story that one day I was drawing, and my godfather, he stopped by and asked, like, Alex, what would you like to be when you grew up? And I said, like, I wanted to be an artist and a superhero. And then he laughed and walked away. And then I thought to myself, I was probably like 4 or 5. I was like, maybe I said something silly, but it was back there. And my work, right? I mean, my work, a lot of my work is connecting to that boy. It's connecting to that little boy, to that little Alex. And telling him that, man, you have half of that accomplished. Let's work on the other half. Like, so if I can change people's lives through what I do, I will do, and that's my way to be like uh, uh, an artist and a hero to someone in some
Mm-hmm.
way, you know. But going back to, but then I stopped. I mean, I had to start working really early in life. I couldn't, like I couldn't go to college, to art school, and not even knew what art school was, you know. So, and I started early, really. I started working really early. I would doodle, but that was not a goal. Fast forward, I'm already like high in my career. But also, when I was back in Sao Paulo, I would go to every opening I will be that guy that we all have, that archetype, the guy that is not necessarily an artist, but he's always around the artist. He's always going to shows, like going to, like museums, and, like going to where the street art is. My thing with street art is really strong. I would ride a bike, right? I always loved, I was never a car guy. I was always a motorcycle guy. Man, I would, if I see a cool mural, I would just make a U-turn and go back to see, and, like, take photos, see who's the artist, and then later on, even before Instagram, do a research on who the artist is. But I always appreciated that. And I always thought, like, how cool it should be to paint on a wall and, like, make your work to, like, to people out there. And then when I was in that career, man, working a lot, making a lot of money, I was successful, I was stable, I was, like, doing just fine. But I was at that point not very happy. I was clearly burned out. Like, I had this relationship with this boss that was like very bittersweet. It was a cool guy. We ended up being good friends. But as a boss, he was an asshole, and like, it was, man. And I was in the worst position because I was the number two in the company. He was the owner of the company, and I was the one that, I mean, I was admired by my team. I gotta say, I think I was a good leader, and that comes from the people who work with me. I always delivered good results, but trying to carry things with kindness and, like, being nice to people. But I was also the guy who was paid to deliver the bad news, like, and to be an asshole sometimes, and that would stress me out. And then I decided that I needed a break. So Joy and I decided to take a sabbatical. Joy also had her career in retail. So she used to be a manager of big operations like Zara, like international brands, national brands. But we were both doing well, but we decided to take 1 year. We would step out of the country, visit friends in different countries, and go back and retake our careers. Like, we sold the condo we had bought, and, like, in a very cool neighborhood in Brazil, in Rio at the time. We were living in Rio, beautiful place. We sold it. We put the money in the bank account and say, well, in a year we come back, we buy another thing, and we retake our career like that. I mean, I wasn't afraid of not or of being unemployed. That's how good I was at the time in my career, right? In between, I quit my job and we actually traveled because we did that. Joy started bugging me about, like, man, why don't you take a workshop on spray painting? You love that. You're always talking about street art, how you love it, how murals. Why don't you do that? I was like, well, why would I do that? That's not what I want to be. I'm not, like, I'm not that talented. I can, like, and it's not what I do for my career, but you need a hobby. You need to do that for pleasure. She enrolled me in a workshop in Sao Paulo with Mundano, an amazing artist from there, and nowadays a friend, which is crazy, you know. Uh, and then I remember, man, I went, and the first time I shook a can and I saw the paint hitting the wall, I was hooked. I said, "Fuck yeah, that's." I don't know how this is gonna be, but I will also do this at least, there was no way I would stop doing that. And it was funny because I don't know what he saw, but because I can even find, if you want later, I probably have on the iPad, but I can show you the very first thing I painted on that workshop on that weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's nothing to be seen there, but he said, man, you're different. There's something there, and I think I'll see you again. And there was like 30 people freaking workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did another one the next month, and then it was a store that sold spray paint, and every once a month they would have like an artist doing a workshop, and then next month Joy said you should go again. I said, fuck yeah, I'm going again. And then it was with a crew of writers from São Paulo. And then later on, I finally went to another workshop with an artist that I loved. Man, I was like such a big fan. And unfortunately, he passed with COVID. But amazing. His name was Vermelho, which means red. His work is amazing. And if you see his work, you'll see how much he influenced my work. even before I started painting. I mean, when I went to his workshop because I was already a big fan, and then after that, man, every time I would go back to Rio, those workshops were in São Paulo. Every time I would go back to Rio, when I was free, I would go to the favelas, to the very poor neighborhood, and ask some of the times ask permission to them, and by them I mean like from that residents to the drug lords, like who running the place, right? And ask permission to come and paint. And my thing is, as you know, and was already at the time, to paint for the kids. You know, like I already painted the kids, you know. And so every time I would come and I would say, hey man, I'm learning, I'm not experienced or anything, you know, like I'm not a big name, but I would love to, you know, like I would buy my cans and at the time, you know, like I would love to come and paint. And, you know, like to me, the beauty of street art is making art accessible, democratic, and out there for people, and in my case, for kids who won't go to galleries, who can't afford going to museums, who are not educated in art, and probably will never be. So that was and it still is my biggest motivation in creating and making what I make. And they would always say yes, man. They would always be super nice, and you know, like you feel there, you would feel more protected than anyone else, even though it's a sketchy place all the time, you know. But they would, you know, like it was always nice. And then that was the first. That was how I practiced when I was in Brazil. But then we had a flight ticket bought, right? And then we would start traveling. And my very first destination would be Atlanta. In that trip that would take me to different places. Spoiler alert, I never went anywhere else because 2 years earlier or 1 year earlier, I came to Atlanta to visit a friend. We were on vacation when we came to travel in the US. Went to Florida, we went to Disney parks or the Orlando parks, and then we drove to Atlanta to spend the weekend with this friend who were living here. She was going to Georgia State at the time, and we came to visit her. And we spent a great weekend here, man. I saw so much art, so much cool shit, so much people. I ate burger at the Vortex. I mean, you know, like I mean, she was very clever on curating our weekend. And we left, and I was with Atlanta already. It was hooked again, you know. So when we decided to start this trip, we decided to start in Atlanta first because it's a place that we've been before. We had a friend that could host us for, at the time we would start, that would be the longest stop. We would be here for 2 to 3 months. Within that period, I would take a English for business course, and Joy would take an English course, right? And then we would keep going. While I was here, my friend knew me from that small town, who knew us from that small town. Damn, man, you guys are good now. You know, like you couldn't afford, but now you can. Why don't you? And she was going to school here, right, to Georgia State. Like, and Alex, you always wanted to go to college and you never did. That's an opportunity. Why don't you try? And then I went to Georgia State at Perimeter at the time, and enrolled and took the tests, right, the English tests and all the other proficiency tests, all the tests you require to go to college, especially the ones from when you're international, with not a lot of high expectations. And I was accepted in all of them. And then I was like, what should we do? And Joy said, is that what you want? Is that what you dream doing? Go for it. Do it. And then again, the rest is history, you know? And then just before I started studying, there was an EAV strut. So now it's the full circle. Now it closes all the story, wraps up. There was an EAV strut, my first EAV strut here. That was late September or early October 2015. And we were walking at the strut, seeing all the cool shit there. And then I saw that someone was painting a mural. I saw this mural halfway done and a lot of art supplies on the floor. And then I started looking around, saying, man, I would love to start meeting artists here. I started meeting artists there in Brazil. And of course, when I left Brazil, I said, oh, that was fun, but I would never paint a wall again in my life. That's gone. It's over. Right? And then I look around, I don't find the artist. And then I see a store across the street. It's caboodle. They closed now. Unfortunately, it was a furniture store. And then I come, and the person behind the counter was super nice. And how can I help you? And I said, do you know who's painting across the street? I introduced myself as an artist, like faking I was lying and shit. Like thinking I was, like feeling like an imposter. But anyways, I'm an artist, and I wanted to meet new artists. I'm new in town. Do you know who's painting? Like he said, no, I don't. But why are you asking this? I said, well, I don't know. I want to meet artists, and eventually, who knows, even paint something. And then he asked me, can I see what you do? And then I showed some of my drawings on my cell phone at the time. And then I said, well, we have a back door that faces a parking lot. That was the big parking lot in Nistalada village. It's blank. Do you want to paint? I said, heck yeah, I want to paint. And then I painted my first mural there the next weekend, and they said like, well, I not even knew how to charge or anything. That was not even a conversation, like, it's like, well, I will, you tell me what you need, what the supplies, I'll buy you the supplies and you paint it. Okay, you're buying my supplies? That's cool. Like I was super happy already. And then I did, man. I painted my two first characters. That was my kids' versions of the owners of the store. There was two guys, like a super nice couple. One of them, they're Terrence and Michael. Michael passed away a few months ago. But they were amazing, and they gave me my first opportunity. They literally opened my first door.
Speaking about your language too, it's crazy to think that that you were going to school and then like learning in a language that like you didn't. I don't know. I think that would be so difficult for me to think about, like to learn in like a different language, especially because you took the English for business course here. How good was your English
I
like
ended up never
before?
I ended up never taking that course. I went straight
Oh,
to college.
so you just went straight there. Okay, so you really learned. I remember you mentioning earlier you learned like just through the media, like watching TV and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then I'm guessing like once just practicing with people too. You remember back in whenever we were in Miami a couple years ago, and I was telling you about how I was learning French, and it was like that French guy who was over there, and I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to talk, I don't want to tear it up or whatever. And he's like, and you're like, no, you gotta go over there and say something. That's how you make it happen. And I just
Yes.
wanted to get this quick question in there because I think there's a lot of people out there that are, they're into like Duolingo or they're, studying little flashcards here and there. But as somebody who has successfully learned another language, and like I know that you're pretty hard on yourself about like the mistakes you make, but you're literally on this podcast, you've been talking to me in English for like an hour, virtually no problems. I can understand you just fine. What can somebody do who's looking to like really just learn a second language and be able to just have that in their bag? Like how would you advise somebody to learn another language?
I would say don't be afraid of making mistakes. You will. It's part of the process. And then if you will, and the other person in the conversation makes fun of you, shame on them, not shame on you. You were the one getting out of your comfort zone to speak their language.
Okay.
And and they should be appreciative, not assholes, and not making fun of you. Like I always thought like that. To learning, we as adults, we get so many layers of like shame and pride and all that, that we forget that the process is the same. Is learning a new skill is going back like when you were a kid, and you're learning, especially when it's a skill that is based on nothing. It's based, if you don't have base for a new language, and by that I mean I'm a Portuguese speaker. It's much easier for me to start a new Latin based language. It would be easier for me today to start learning Italian than to learn Chinese, Mandarin,
Mm-hmm.
because the base is already there. The structure, the root of the language is already there. If I decide to learn Chinese or even Italian or any other language, if I decide to learn Chinese, the first thing I have to have in mind is I'm like a kid. I'm learning the very first words. Is what we do in Duolingo. I will be learning how to say 1, 2, 3, 4. I would be learning how to say apple, how to say house, how to say I, you, me, all of that. And I can be afraid. I can be ashamed of that. Like again, it's me trying to learn someone else's language. You know, and once you understand that you have to like a kid, because again, my analogy is because we as adults, we make fun and we think it's cute when a kid makes mistake with the language, with their own language. But as a matter of fact, when you're adult, you will make cute mistakes also. And they are funny and it's fun and it's fine if whoever you're talking to like laughs because it is funny, but never laughs in a way to make you feel less. Laugh because it's funny. You cannot have too much pride to make that prevent you to keep going. You have to have some self-deprecating, like skills to make fun of yourself also, like what did I say wrong here? And make that joke one time. The first time I went to a hot pot, one of those Korean barbecues, instead of asking for an order of mushrooms, I asked for an order of mustaches, and everybody cracked. And then, I did too. And of course I was feeling, oh gosh, that's, what a shame. But all the next times I would go for dinner with any one of those people who were in that table, I would always start the conversation, say, should I order mustache tonight? Because it becomes part of your story, your history, it becomes so what I would say is don't be afraid of trying. Don't be afraid of, you will find 95% of cool people who will be appreciative of you trying to speak their language, who will try to help you, who will correct you in a nice way, not to put you in a spotlight, not to make you feel bad. 5%, man, that's standard deviation. Those people, they will be assholes to people who speak their own language. They will be assholes on the traffic. They will be, they're just people that you don't want around you, anyways. That shouldn't be that shouldn't be an obstacle. Or if it's an obstacle, just move forward. Don't make that make you stop. And that's how I am. I think I have a good a good ear for language, and I try to speak other people's language all the time. But most importantly, I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. That's how it goes.
Mhm. Yeah. It's definitely one of them ones that and I think even with learning a language, those mistakes like that, you'll never forget. You'll never forget the right word. You'll never because it was so like impactful in that moment, whether it was embarrassing or funny or scary or whatever, you were going to know what that word. I bet you'll never forget mushroom in your life because because of
Yep.
that moment, because there was a time whenever I was like whenever I went to Paris a couple years ago, I was going out
Mhm.
there testing my French and stuff like that. And the word, to say like you're excited, uh I'm thinking that the word in French is excité, which is like basically excited. But excité in
The
French
meaning,
means like it's like you in the mood, like you and I'm like,
yeah,
oh
you're
shoot.
horny.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm going. I told somebody like, yo, I'm excited, and they're like, huh? And I'm like, and they're looking at me like I said something crazy, and I'm like, what? I just said I'm excited, and then people are looking at me wild, and then it took my language friend to be like, yeah, you're not saying what you think you're saying, and now I know
Yeah,
the right word, is Jayat is like I am genuinely like excited, and that's something I'll never forget. And so,
yeah. Oh, I'm telling you, Cam, I have so many stories like that to tell you, and that again, you will never forget. That these are funny stories to tell, But yeah, so excited is a good example because that's the same word for most Latin-based languages. So in Portuguese, excitado is
Mm-hmm.
turned on,
Oh, okay.
happy. Like, yeah,
Interesting.
thrilled.
Hmm. And in terms of like the techniques that you would use to learn the language, like what would you recommend, or like what have you found, like just in retrospect, is like, okay, this actually worked really well, or this was just kind of fluff or whatever.
Man, I'll tell you the story, but I mean, not even I have the time to do that anymore. But I'm very nerdy on some things. I was always like good student and everything, but I'm very nerdy. I like to, like, and when I decide that I want to learn something, I go after that. And what I would do is I would watch TV shows. Like, I had like on the time of DVDs,
Mm-hmm.
and the first DVD you had the options to choose the subtitles, right? And so I would watch. I remember I loved. I mean, that's a guilty pleasure here. I love Sex in the City.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the 8 seasons, the movies, and everything. I love it. I just love it. And this is one example. I did that with a lot of things. I would do with music, with MTV. I would buy. We would have magazines in Brazil that had the translation of the lyrics. I would not only listen to the music, reading the lyrics in English, which would help me to sing when I was in a band, but I would listen to reading the translation, so I would start assimilating the words, right? Back to Sex and the City, I would watch every episode. Man, I watched every episode for the first season to the eighth season 3 times in a
Mm-hmm.
row. In that, I would watch the episode first with Portuguese subtitles, second with English subtitles, and right after with no subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
So every episode is about 27, 25, 27 minutes. Every episode to me would last an hour and a half, because I would start over again with the English subtitle, and then no subtitle. And then I would try to assimilate, try to mimic like the accent by myself. I was doing that by myself. I wasn't telling anyone I was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked. Like, my brain started assimilating. My brain was like, okay, stop giving me that. I'll give you what you want. you know,
Here, you
and
learned it.
and yeah, I'm nerd. Yeah, and when you say, like, in talking to people, man, especially back in the day. Nowadays, the younger people in Brazil, they're more prone to learn English, or at least the people who I used to live with, small town, not, I mean, public school. You don't have like a top quality education, you won't learn very strong English, right? And on street, you won't have a lot of foreigners. But then my first job in a cool brand in Brazil, which is the brand where I built my career, actually, I was a salesperson. And that the store I used to, the mall slash store I used to work, was close to the airport and close to the American embassy. So I would have a lot of Americans coming to hang out at the mall, like, or to eat at the food court or a restaurant, or be at the mall to buy souvenirs, or whatever. Every time a foreigner would come, everybody would run away from them. And I was always the one, like, let me talk, let me talk. And I would start interacting. I would start with the few words I had at the time. And I remember asking again, the other tip is ask. I would ask, man, the person is trying to buy something from me. I'm like, how do you say, I mean, I would get a jumpsuit, and I'm like, how do you say this? I don't know this word. And I'll get a belt, and I will point to the buckle, and like, how do you say this part of the belt? You
Mm.
know? Or so, like, that guy's crazy. I just want to buy a t-shirt and get out of here.
Say, look, man, you
But
helping me out.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Dang. It's so good. Like, I think that there's something, um I mean, learning a language is tough. And especially as an adult too. Like you said, with like with all the mental hurdles you gotta jump over, and with
Oh yeah.
and then just having to fight the habit of speaking your natural language as well. Um but man, it's always just really admirable to know that, like, that you've learned this language like successfully. And I mean, it's not just English too, like, because you speak a little Spanish too, don't you?
I do. the same way I speak my English, which is like man, I do. I don't care. I mean, I tell people, I make fun. Same thing I told you about English is how I speak Spanish, and I speak just fine. I can communicate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we have like you guys have the expression Spanglish.
Mm-hmm.
We have the expression Portuñol, and I always say
Mm-hmm.
that I'm very fluent. Every Spanish speaking person, I say, I got you. Let's have a conversation here. I'm fluent in Portuñol. You know, like just to break ice and start a conversation with low expectations, but showing that I'm willing to have a conversation in their language. You know, like I feel honestly talking to you, I feel more comfortable speaking English than Spanish because Spanish is so close to Portuguese. It's so easy to make mistake and just automatically switch to Portuguese without even noticing. Because some words are exactly the same, and then when you speak those words, your brain just takes you back to Portuguese. My brain at least does that, you know. And in English, that never happens, or almost never happens. But but yeah, I do speak some Spanish. I can communicate in Spanish.
It's very inspiring. It has me wanting to get back into my French studies as well. Like I've it's kind of fallen by the wayside, admittedly. And I know that like I would say by the time I was leaving Paris, I was able to like I had to fight for my case in French in the airport because they were trying to make it to where my COVID test I took a little too early. It had to be like within 24 hours, and I took it like 27 hours before. And I had to like explain myself and like in French, like,
Yeah,
hey, like I'm trying to, I can't really go back and get another one. I'm from Atlanta. Like, this is my only chance. Please just like allow this. And um even the Uber driver that took me to the airport, I remember I asked him if he knew any English, and he was like, I know hi and hello. That's it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's the type of car ride it's gonna be. But yeah, feel kind of rusty now. But yeah, it's definitely encouraging me to like shake the dust off.
yeah. We've talked about that before, and I mean, I'll always encourage you to keep going. You know, like to go ahead and do it again. And language gets rusty, man. I mean, if you don't speak, gets rusty. Any
Hmm.
language, your own language. Trust me. Sometimes it's as silly as it may sound. Go back to Brazil, and people think you're being like posh or like trying to like. But no, I mean, there's some words that if you don't use for years and years, like it's or that just means getting old, and maybe that can be the case too.
Yeah, I do want to get into your art. I feel like we've spoken so much about your life and things. It's all been so insightful. But I want to get into your art as well because that's like the star of the show. And
Yeah.
like in terms of your subject matter, I know that you make art. um you started making art for kids. It's one of your big motivations today. But in terms of what you actually paint, because there's a lot of things that you could paint to be in service to kids, but what makes you paint the things that you paint? And like in terms of your visual style, what were some things that influenced those like artistic choices?
Well, some of the artists I've mentioned before, some of the I feel like I have my style. If you see my very early drawings, you would see a lot of things that you still see in my art. And of course, my art evolved, style evolved, but I feel like my style was always there, and probably that's true for most of us. The way we draw, the way we like making things. But I was heavily influenced by uh, as early in life, some comic books. But by comic books, my work it's kind of different than a lot of other artists because my background is different. So my comic book illustrators were Brazilian illustrators. So I would have artists such as a guy called Ziraldo and another one called Mauricio de Souza. These are Brazilian big names, man. I'm telling you, big names, and they're uh, the book by Ziraldo was the very first book I read in my life. And then I started learning more and more Portuguese by reading the comic books from these two people. And then eventually I learned, like, I started seeing like Disney comic books and X-Men, Marvel, DC, all this type of shit. But very earlier than that, it was those artists. And then I wanted to doodle, I wanted to draw, I wanted to, like, recreate what I was seeing. And then eventually later on, when I started developing my tastes for art, for visual arts, and especially street art, which was always my passion, the Brazilian street arts, my very first art heroes, like I mentioned Speto, I mentioned Os Gêmeos. These are two great examples. And a lot of people say, well, when I see your work, kind of resembles Os Gêmeos. I mean, first, to me, that's an honor. I never take that in the wrong way. To me, like, I mean, if you're comparing my work to their work, man, first of all, I might be doing something right, and I'll never aim to copy or to be a copycat. I honestly don't think it's that close, but I can see the references. A lot of people say that I have the South American style, and then I started understanding what that means. Like very character based, like very cartoonish, but in a different way, And but if you see what this illustrator I mentioned, Ziraldo, his work, his comic books, you will see that my work has more to do with his work than with Os Gêmeos, for example. And then, of course, eventually I was also very influenced by old American cartoons, like from Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, and all that, right? And all the Disney and all that. I would stay at home drawing from my coloring books or drawing from TV, like Paws and trying to make the Tiny Toons and I not even know if I'm saying this in the right accent because I learned in Brazilian accent, which is the Animaniacs.
Oh,
Animaniacs.
Animaniac, yeah. The
Man, I
little, they're like
love
little
it.
mouse, like rabbit
Yeah,
mouse looking creatures. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. By
Animaniacs.
Steven Spielberg. By Steven Spielberg.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's so, man, so fun. I mean, and that influenced not only my art, but also my sense of humor. They were so funny, man. I love their jokes. And another fun fact: a lot of people ask me, how do I know so much about American culture or international culture? And I say, like, from cartoon, it was all there. I mean, people are like, oh, how do you know that NASA has a station at Cape Canaveral? I say, well, because of Woody Woodpecker. Like the alligator lived there. Like, in
Hmm.
that one example, there's so many other examples of that. Anyways, yeah, those are my early influences.
And then I know that you have certain characters that are recurring in, like, I know that you do a lot of like children, and I know that they switch up a lot, like in terms of shape, size, color, like just clothes, everything. But then, like, I know that you have Dom, your pink bear,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I want to know, how did he come to be, and do you have other characters that that you keep around, and like, are there any symbolisms or messages you push with those characters?
Yeah, I think Dom is the biggest name. I've been making this character that is inspired by Joy a lot recently, and I guess I will have to name her Joy sooner or later because people are. I mean, we painted next to each other recently a month ago, and as I was painting, a couple of people walked by. Is that Joy again? I said, "Well,
I
I
guess
guess
so.
it is." Right? Of course, it was, but I guess people will start seeing that character and already calling her Joy, which I'm completely fine with that. But Dom is, until now, Dom is actually the only character that has a name, and but I do have some recurring characters. I have this little girl with the bun. Uh, the curly hair girl is Joy, and if you see, like, 80% of my kids' characters are girls, and again, it took me a while to understand why. and goes back to my childhood. I told you that I was raised by the woman of my family. I used to play with my female cousins. Like I probably still have more female friends than male friends. I don't know. Nowadays, maybe that's even. Growing up, it was the case, but it's probably because the way I was raised. But Dom, man, telling the story of Dom, I told you the beautiful part of like transitioning from my previous career to art, but it took me a lot of time to accept that. It was hard for me. I was successful, I was stable. What am I doing? Like people are calling me artist. I'm like, super uncomfortable with that. Like, and I'm not sure if I'm doing this for a long time. Eventually, I'm gonna go back, like to business. I'm gonna, I had that. I want that stability. I had this conflict big time in my mind for a long, long time, and I'm a big advocate for like psychotherapy, talking to people, like to understand your feelings and all that. And one day I was in this, and I mean, I was always talking about that conflict with my therapist. Uh, and one day I was in a session, and then I told her about this bear. So like now this bear started showing up, and like and and you're an artist, sometimes you don't plan to make something, it just pops up, it's there, right? It just flows. And then I said, well, this bear started popping up, like it started like small, and then it's getting bigger, and then I mean, it was purple, and then white, like a polar bear, and then now for the third time it's pink, and for the first time it's bigger than the kids. It was a mural, if you remember, it was like a kindergarten type of thing called Haven Heat House in Decatur. And I painted these kids on a paper boat, and the captain of the paper boat was Dom. It was a relatively small mural. Well, it was the biggest I had done at the time. But anyways, and then I told her about that mural, and how that bear was growing up more and more, to a point that people liked and started asking me for a name, and I don't know what's the freaking name. And then what she told me was, and she's also Brazilian, right? I mean, I used to have sessions with her here. She's based in Atlanta, but she's Brazilian. And she said, have you noticed that the bear grows more and more as the more you accept your gift? And the word gift in Portuguese is dom. And then I said, okay, that makes sense. And you just named the bear, by the way, you
Mm.
know, and
Shout
that's the
out,
meaning
man.
behind it.
Shout out
Yeah,
to
shout out to
Dom.
be. There we go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's why the dom is called dom, and that's why I always try to put him there somehow. Even if the character itself is not there, there is something that resembles to the character. Can be a flower, can be a necklace, as you saw in the last one I painted, can be a, like a bracelet, a backpack, whatever. It's there as my shout out, is my reverence to my dom, to my inner child, to that kid that fought back and decided to be what he wanted to be and what he loves to be. So if Dom represents that, the bare minimum I have to do is keep bringing him back.
What was that process like between first wall and EAV and then like the stuff that you do today? Like where did you or how did you start putting in your reps per se? Like when it comes to um just building that career here, and then just even like making connections outside of the city just off the strength of like mural art and stuff like that. Can you tell us about just kind of like some of the good and the bad of that gift growing?
Hmm. Well, I don't see any bad. I mean, bad is that maybe I can do more than I do. I don't do enough yet.
Well,
That's
maybe
the
not
only.
bad, but maybe just like areas of friction or like resistance. You may have had to give it a little bit more gas to get through, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, I'll start with the good ones. Man, first, it grew organically. Like I mean that wall, because of that wall, I felt encouraged to ask permission to paint another very small wall in the intersection of North Highland Ave and who's the other one? You know where Videodrome, the by Virginia, between Virginia Island and Old Fort Worth, the old VHS rent place. So that intersection, there was an empty wall there, and I was always stuck in traffic in that freaking light, and like I was always seeing people honking and being like stressed. I said, man, I need to make something to make that corner a little bit happier. And then I went to the it was an apartment complex there, and then I went to the leasing office, and then I just did this elevator pitch I just told you now. And so, what would you do? And then I opened my sketchbook and I said, I thought about this. What do you think? He said, well, I like that. You can do it. And then I literally ran back home. I used to live in Old Fort Worth at the time when it was possible to afford living there. And grabbed some cans and came back there and painted a kid. It was a boy with a two hand like covering his ears. And there was a lot of symbols that represent like bad words and bad feelings, like a little snake, a little, like shit, a
Mm.
little lighting bulb, which is a reference to what bad words used to be, how bad words used to be represented in that very first comic books I used to read when I was a kid back in Brazil. So
Mhm.
that was a reference to that. But the kid was like serene, like with a happy expression, covering his ear to all the bad stuff around. And man, so many people started tagging and posting and tagging me on that wall, just because I think it was the right spot for that. And because of that, a few local artists started like following and interacting, and one thing led to the other, and then someone invited me to paint on a small pop-up show. I'm sorry, small pop-up festival, like a big wall that was shared at the time by me. I got a very skinny, small strip wall that is still there. Fun fact is Glen Iris Ave in Old Fort Worth. But I painted. That's when I met Killamari. I met some of other, like Lotus Eaters members, Chris and Courtney for sure. I think Pam, and I painted I painted next uh, to Donna, Miss Donna, 70 Dots, which is like
Mhm.
yeah, great friend that I love, and we painted collabs together after that. Uh, and then also one day I assisted Joe Dreyer in one of his murals, and then he kind of helped me with the text on that small mural. And then, man, connections started being made, and one thing led to the other, and then people started asking me. I mean, that's how careers go, right? And then, oh, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And then, boom, 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 some electric boxes, and and then I started assisting, right? I mean, assisting also. I assisted, as I said, assisted Joe Dreyer, Joe King. Shout out to Joe. I assisted Yo-Yo Ferro, which is one of my best friends in art, as you may know, uh, and I started learning, like, and then I was invited to my first Forward Warrior. I don't remember if I asked to be a part of, or if Yo-Yo introduced me to Peter, and said, "Man, I would love to be a part of that." And then Peter invited me the next year, and that was 2018, I think. And that was my tallest mural at the time. Later on, someone called me. I was already living in Lisbon. Someone called me asking me to illustrate a children's book, because that author, that woman, would drive by that first forward board mural and say, well, if I write a book, I want that person to illustrate. So just pun intended, to illustrate how things build up. And then I don't know, man. I mean, when they had like festivals such as Outer Space here, I would show up and talk to the artists, and they say, well, if I go to your town, I'll hit you up. And then at first time I went to New York, and I don't know, man. I just feel like I'm good in reaching out to people and making connections. So then I started being invited to festivals out of Atlanta, still within the U.S. and and I painted in New York a couple of times, as you know. Uh, well, this is the U.S. chapter, and then I ended up moving to Portugal. Uh, but every big gig I would get would be in the U.S. So I would come here to paint, and I would try to find a way to swing by Atlanta and paint here and see the homies. But in that because of that experience, I was able to paint in Mexico. I was able in Mexico City. I was able to paint it also in Portugal, in Spain. And when I would visit the U.S., I painted in different cities and states. I painted in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts, in Worcester, Massachusetts. I painted in Miami. We painted together in Miami 1 year in the Art Basel Week. Uh, yeah, and I know. Don't ask me how I know so many people in the game, but I know a lot of people, man, in different countries and different. I mean, it just happened, and
Mm.
I'm very very proud and very happy, man, because I mean, these are great people. I love my art friends. I really do.
Mm.
They show up, as you know. They show up. I mean, a lot of them visited me in Lisbon. Like I visited them in some of their hometowns, and it's so nice how it happens.
And I think you said it earlier too, where it was organic. It wasn't overnight. It didn't all just happen at once. You didn't wake up and know 50 people. It was like you met these people one at a time, two at a time, or whatever,
Yeah,
and you just added to the collection slowly, and then those relationships deepen over time as well. Um, in terms of your like, I know that you always put in such a nice message when it comes to your artwork, and it's the kind of message where like it doesn't just hit you over the head, where it's like if it's a huge text of something and it's like you're kind of forced to read whatever the message is. It's more of like you kind of see it, and then if you look a little bit longer, you might start to get these messages and things. And my question for that is, hmm, do you think it takes time to get to that point in your artwork of like having these sentiments that you want to express? Um, because I went the very superficial route of like, I just want to paint cool stuff. I just want to paint like robots and samurai and dragons, and like they don't really mean anything. They're just cool to me. Um, and it's not until recently where I actually started like trying to pour into like a specific type of messaging. But even now, I find it difficult sometimes to even think about what to say and like what do I even want to put out. And so I guess um, I'd like to know your approach to applying messaging to your work, or even just sitting to think about like, okay, you have a brand new project, like where do you even start on like what to say and like what's important enough to put out?
yeah. That's a good question. I will break down in two parts. I feel like, as I told you earlier, my style hasn't changed a lot in the last years. Well, it changed. My work changed a lot, improved a lot, of course, evolved. But I think because I want my work to be I want to keep my work very simple, very easy to be digested, and also I want to be reachable. What I mean by that is, everybody knows that uh, all the kids see the things is a big inspiration to me, and they are a big part of my target audience. That's at least who I target when I create work. And to me, it only makes sense if kids see my work and think they can reproduce that. And if I love when I'm painting or when I see a kid trying to draw or making their version of my work and they see that as reachable. Whereas, and shout out to all the realism artists out there. I love all their work, but even to me it's intimidating to try to reproduce some of the works, the complexity of the works you see like that out there. And some of the works are not made to be reproduced anyways. And I understand that. But you were asking about my purpose. My purpose is that I want to be accessible and I want especially kids, if they want to reproduce, they feel they're able to do it. So when you stick to that level of simplicity, your storytelling have to be strong. Because I don't have a lot to show. I mean, my eyes were and still are two little balls. My noses are usually like a triangle, and the mouth is usually a line. But how do I express feelings, emotions, like how I make characters expressive with that level of simplicity. So you have to start forcing yourself and asking yourself deeper questions on how to convey what I want to convey with that level of simplicity. That's the first part of the answer, I guess. The second part, and just to conclude, and also you asked about when someone asks me for something, when a client asks for something, I have to rely on a lot of research because I have to learn a lot about what I'm painting about, so I can create the Easter eggs. I can, build up all those subtle things that you mentioned that are not out there. I don't like to be literal. I love when the work is literal. Sometimes I put text, but it's rare. I usually like to tell the story and convey the message without the text. I love poetry and I love lyrics, and I love when the message is not out there. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes you want to say, when the message is wrong, it's in the chorus. But I love when it's layers of it, and yeah. So I think that's how I approach my my message, my art, how I do things. Yeah, I feel I lost track of the answer here. Probably I did.
Oh no, no, no. It's I think there's so that second part it covered where if you have a well no, I mean you answered it, but I guess I'm looking more for if you're commissioned to do something out of your own free will. So not necessarily for a project or for for any type of client or anything. But if it's like Forward Warrior again, and it's your own piece, it's whatever you want to do, how do you sit down and okay, this is what I want to say. This is what I want to put out. What are you kind of cooking together mentally, internally?
Yeah, I'll go with what you said. I mean, sometimes I just want to paint something that look cool, and of course, from there I build up and I hide some Easter eggs, and I put some things that there are things in my paintings that are just for myself. I don't want to explain to anyone, but some of them I like to share, because I feel like it will resonate. And I'm a firm believer, just like in music and lyrics, and I just said some hidden things are not out there. You don't know the meaning, but it touches you in a way that you don't know why, but it touches you. And I believe that if I put it there, it will touch someone somehow, even if they don't feel exactly why. We see an abstract painting in a museum, and that thing provokes an emotion in you, and you don't know why. But I do believe we're connected through a invisible line of feelings of we're all part of the same thing. So when one feels a lot, all of us feel. So I mean, depends on your level of openness and sensibility, and sometimes yes, education. But for art, I mean, not whatever art is. I do think some of the things I don't need to explain to anyone. because first it's for myself, and second, if I felt, someone else will feel, and people feel it. People tell me that. Like it's funny how many people think they feel the feeling I want to convey, even though the painting is colorful, it has all these patterns and this and that. Like I always try to. I think to me is big. I mean, the big thing to me is trying to make pain, make like feelings that are not the most elevated and happy, to make my art elevate them with colors, with a strong storytelling, with like I love when people say that I create happy art, that my art make them happy. To me, that's mission accomplished, because a lot of that art comes out of pain, comes out of like grief, comes out of uh and my biggest challenge is, how do I transform that? How do I convert that? And that's, to me, therapeutical. That's my way to heal. Like that's my way to give new meaning, to repurpose feelings, emotions, memories. And then I put together all my whimsical, crazy, whimsical, childlike mind, and try to combine both, because I still have, like, when you say something, my brain completely interprets it in a different way, like more like a kid would think. That's why I love talking to kids, because I love asking them how they see things. Like, if you see an umbrella, what would you do with this umbrella? It's never, the kid's answer is never protect myself from the rain. That's the
Oh, it's
boring
no.
adult. Yeah, they will come with the craziest, most funny and fun ideas, and that's the essence. That's my raw material, you know, to put together to my own feelings, to my own memories, to my inspirations. That can be dreams, that can be music, that can be movies, that can be video clips, whatever. And then when I put this together, it's what that my work is.
Yeah, and that childlike imagination, it's no joke, man. Like I even look back at old sketchbooks of mine, and I'm like, yo, my skill wasn't all the way there, but them ideas were crazy. Like it makes you really go and revisit. Have you ever tried to just go back and like redraw old stuff out of your old sketchbooks?
Every time, every time. Man, I can't. I mean, I have a pile of old sketchbooks here, but I have also a pile of old sketchbooks in Lisbon. I have post-its. I save post-its all the time, uh, because I mean, I have massive murals that started out of a post-it. Like
Mm-hmm.
and sketchbooks. I mean, do you want a good example of that? That drip invitational piece I painted.
Okay.
Uh, I told you that I was assigned to paint the wall that you ended up painting, right? And then someone didn't show up, and Chris asked me if I could paint that wall. The design I created, it was for the first wall, and I did not have a design for that second wall. What did I do? I had a bag with all my old sketchbooks. I went to all my old sketchbooks, and I found the sketch that I loved, but it's an old sketch on the sketchbook that is half the size. It's like, like a couple inches.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the mural just came out of my sketchbook, and that happened so many times, Cam. I mean, paintings, canvases. I mean, I'm always revisiting old sketchbook, always, all the time. And sometimes I redo the sketch. Like sometimes a couple of times, until I refine them to a point that I say, okay, now this can become something, either a painting, digital illustration, or an animation, or a mural. That's almost always my goal,
Mm.
to paint in large scale.
And when you're designing things, or maybe even in the execution, how is your relationship with your your inner voices? Like the ones who I'm gonna give you an example. Like for me, I have like the one that just wants to make a cool piece of art. I have the one that wants to say, the most impactful message sentiment ever, share an amazing story. I've got one that's trying to get rich. I got one that's trying to get social media famous. I got one that's a troll. He's just like talking mess about everything. And you got to kind of find a harmony between them. But what's what's your voices like, and what are y'all's relationship?
Have those, all of those, man. I think we all have most of those, and we learn how to, like give to amplify some of them, to like to uh, very hard to mute them, but to turn some of those down, eventually. But I have all of those also, and that's normal, and that's part of who we are. But I do also have, man, I have a voice. I mean, I have been very, very vulnerable here. I have the constant voice that I have in my mind is that the voice of my dad when I was probably at 9, or the first time. I mean, in Brazil back in the day, they have like this long distance courses. You would like, I got this drawing course, and that was the only experience I had with something similar. That you would make a drawing based on something you ship by mail, and someone would grade and give you a critique on your drawings. And then I remember I told a neighbor knew it, an adult neighbor, a grown up, knew that I was doing because she knew I liked to draw, and she's like, what do you how's your thing going? And I said, well, I didn't know the meaning of the word professional at the time. I didn't know the meaning. To me, professional at that age mean like when you do something that you love, that you do something really well, you're a
Mm-hmm.
professional. I didn't know that it's doing for money. And then I told her, yeah, I'm loving it. I'm a professional now. And then she
Mm-hmm.
laughed. She giggled, and yeah, that's cool. Alex, don't stop doing it. Like you're good. And went away. I came back inside, and my dad looked at me and say, stop lying. You're not professional. And more than that, you're not an artist. Remember what I'm saying? You are not an artist. And that voice, man, that resonates in my mind all the time. Every time I get a project, every time I get a sketchbook, every time I start a design, I feel like the biggest thing is like, how will I gracefully shut the fucking mouth of my mind,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've been succeeding on that, and I mean, I almost hope the voice stays there because I'll keep being challenged and keep thriving.
Mm-hmm. It's that
But
that
the
voice of
voices are
spite
there.
too, you know.
The voices are there, man. I mean, I'll go back to that. If you tell me I won, I will likely to challenge you on
Mm-hmm.
that.
Keeps that fire going. But I know that's like, and I'm sure it's not always easy to deal with. I'm sure a lot of times it's not easy to deal with, especially on days where like
Oh,
you've already got a bunch going on in other places, and then like here comes this voice again, and you're like, oh Lord.
especially because let's be honest, right, Cam? With few exceptions, and man, God bless those exceptions. What we do, it's not as constant and stable. Like it fluctuates a lot. It's very project based, and until you build that level of stability, that you have different sources and different streams, like creative streams, but also financial streams. Until you get to that point, it takes time, like, and when things are fine, it's fine. When things are not fine, like you have to find different ways, find different alternatives, and but also it's when those voices come stronger. Those are the voices that makes you second guess yourself. And I'm telling you this again out of a place of vulnerability, because that happens to all of us, and when it happens, it happens. It's brutal, like, and shout out to all of us that keep doing it and keep, like, making that happen.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I mean, I told you this yesterday too, but just to connect with that type of voice, I remember right before I posted the first flyer for the first episode of the podcast, I remember there was like that voice inside that was like, who are you to be feeling like you can run a podcast, on art? Like, what have you done to like to see yourself as somebody who can like sit in this type of seat and do this type of thing, like podcasting is for people who they've been in the game 20, 30, 40 years and now they're just reflecting and learning and teaching. I'm like, but it's just a voice, and you can choose to listen to it or not. And
Yeah,
it's that voice of spite too that kind of comes back and is like, we're gonna do it anyway. Or like, I'm not
yeah.
claiming to be that person that is, on his high horse or is so much better than or whatever, just somebody having
You're doing
conversations.
you're doing it. You're not a lot of people uh, listen to the voice and stop doing what they're chasing, what they're dreaming of, and you keep doing. And that deserves like a big shout out. You like that's it. That's inspiring. That's inspiring. And uh, like this episode of your show, it's kind of a full circle because during COVID, I had like a little run out that my our motivation, and we talked about it, it's very close, which is like trying. First of all, it's a good opportunity to hang out with friends and getting to know better people that we know for years in art. But like, I mean, we can still be good friends, and but when we're together, we're talking art or we're making art. We're not. I don't know much about your personal life, about your background, about your story, and about your process sometimes, and your techniques and all that. Why, and how you do that. A situation like this is a great opportunity for us, and of course, whoever wants to watch this to learn that also. And that was my motivation at the time. With the plus that it was COVID, and I was in Lisbon feeling miserable because I knew nobody there. I had no friends. We like that was very strict. We couldn't go out, and I was missing my friends in Atlanta. I was missing my artist fam. Like, and then I put that together because I wanted to hang out and create with friends. And you were one of the people I invited, and you say, yeah, of course, and we did that, and I didn't go through, and it's fine. It was like I'm really fine with that. I feel like I did for as long as I needed to do, and it served the purpose. It was great. I had great memories, but also I was dealing with a lot at that period, like, and that was not the priority. And I just feel like it's amazing. I told you that yesterday also, that man, you're rocking, you're doing it, and you're doing it great, and I can see the evolution. I watched a couple of the first ones, and then I watched a couple of the last ones, and I can see the evolution. I can see the way you're conducting better, and the way you're improving with everything, like, and that's how it goes. And all of the big podcasters, except for the big names that already came as stars, everybody who was a trailblazer, like even in the street art, on the art podcast scene, the ones you and I like to listen to, they had those voices, man. They started like, like Andre 3000 said something last weekend when he got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nomination, right? Great things start in small rooms. And
Mm,
that's what you're doing there. That's what we do when we create art in the kitchen. This is the first time in my life that I have a dedicated studio, but which is, like, uh, in a way, it's still a small room where I'm creating things. So keep going, keep doing what you're doing is beautiful, and you're doing great.
man, I appreciate it. And you're helping add to that. You are part of the reason why the show is so great. Your episode, I'm sure people watch it back and listen to it. I mean, they're gonna enjoy this as well. You'll be part of that as well. So I appreciate you.
Appreciate that.
And
Yeah.
we spoke um about a solo show that you're like l- I guess planning or wanting to or shooting for. Um,
Yeah.
you know, what about um can you tell me a little bit more about that, and as well as what what would you like your show to kind of center around or focus on?
Yeah, I would love to have. I mean, my goal is having a solo show by more or less this time of the year next year.
Hmm.
So it sounds like a lot of time, but I'm also not the fastest painter, and also like I'm always doing other stuff, and I'm not full time in the studio. So I know the challenges, but that's my goal, and I want to make that happen. On the other side of that, again, for the first time, I have this amazing friend. Uh, Shout out to Dr. Patty Gregg. It's a friend that she had this. She lives in Avondale State, and she had this unfinished basement, and she knows first my artwork since forever, and second, how Joy and I like to collaborate in projects that incorporate like interior design, which is now what the field of study of Joy's field of study, and art. And she came with this like, hey, how about that? I have this unfinished basement. Would you like to redo the whole thing? But all I need in my basement, I don't come here very often. All I need is that space, like a workout space where I have a treadmill, uh, my laundry room, but I want it to look cool. And all the rest, which is 70% of the space, you can build the studio you always wanted to have. Do whatever you want. And she gave us not only a blank canvas, but a blank check. And she said, like, do whatever. I'll be out for 2 months. She would spend 2 months out on a trip. It's like AGTV shows. I want to be surprised. You don't need to ask me anything. She gave me very few guidelines. Do go crazy. Do whatever. Do your thing. And man, yeah. And I know that never happens. It's like crazy to even think about having a friend. And I'm blessed, man. I have the best friends. I mean, my friends are fantastic. My life is not what will never be what it is without my wife, my family, and the friends. I mean, the chosen family is something else. But anyways, because of that, first of all, it looked great. I mean, I love it. I love this studio. I love the everything, the space, the basement. It's so cool and funky. I never posted. I need to. It's so cool and funky and fun, and you have to come up. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm in Avondale. You're Stone Mountain. You should get together. You should come
Yeah,
up.
that's close. That's like 15
Yeah.
minutes away.
Well, the thing is, man, I knew 2025 would be a year that I wouldn't paint a lot of murals. I wouldn't be in a lot of festivals. I knew that. I'm fine with that. I was focused on other things, like other projects, and and I knew I wouldn't be out there so much. But it was also I've never had a year that I put out so much work, like canvases, commission piece, like and paintings, experiment. And it was never a year that I experimented so much in a studio. I never had a dedicated space. And how it is to, like paint on your room, in your house, in your, like it. I mean, you do what you can do, but I mean, having a dedicated space where you can paint like series, like having three canvas up on the same time and working on them simultaneously. This type of shit I always wanted to have. Now I can. It impacted my art. I feel like my craft is getting better. I feel like I've been able to put out better work, and I've been able to participate in more shows, saying more yeses than nos, and the feedback is getting better. So I feel the next step, not only because now I have a space for that, and that was an excuse, unfortunately, and shouldn't be, but also is because this is my 10th year of artist career.
Hmm.
I feel
Hmm.
now the next step has to be a solo show. And I feel like I'm ready for that. I feel like my work is stronger, my subject matter is more solid, my work is more consistent, and I'm more aligned with my storytelling. And I feel like a lot of what you saw in my last, for example, my last 2 or 3 ABV pieces show, or my last mural for the Drip Invitational, that look is more of what you're gonna see in my solo show. More of that. It's pretty much like telling stories of my life and about the life of people around me through my characters, and incorporating elements within them. You see a lot of I've been working a lot of telling the stories within them, in their clothing, in their outfit, in their like in the elements they're carrying. That's what you said earlier. How to tell the story without everything being so explicit, everything being so out there. Like making people ask questions.
And when it comes to, oh man, there's a couple questions or just things I want to like talk about because of what you said. So like for one, the studio aspect is is amazing. Like that ability to kind of have a dedicated space for for just for your artwork is like, I don't think people really understand its impact
It's
until they have
magic.
it. Yeah, because I'm one of the people, I've never had like a dedicated studio space as well. And so like I'm used to painting like in my room, in like on the bed, or like over down
Yeah,
in the living room, and like I gotta make sure I don't get paint on Gigi's floor, on carpet or whatever. Or I'm putting stuff over here to where, I can't leave this overnight because, you know, such and such is gonna come back through here. Like this is, you know, the living room, and so people are gonna be in here, or whatever. And it also just psychologically, it can kind of help you get into a headspace of like, okay, when I come in here, this is why I'm in here. Like I'm here to get creative. You can kind of like, if you can kind of form the space around that, then
yes,
man, as soon as you step in, you're ready to go. It's not like
man.
if your
It's
studio,
yeah,
yeah, it's not like whenever you have your studio in your bedroom, because then you're like, you want to be creative, but like you also kind of want to go to sleep because your bed is right there, or like you also want
yeah,
to watch TV because you might have a TV in your room or whatever. But man, when you have a studio like that, it's
yeah.
special.
Yeah, it is
Hmm.
special, and I'm super happy and again thankful for having that. And like I shared that with Joy a lot. Like she's been experimenting also, like on her projects. We played together with some decoration things that may or may not be part of the show, may or may not be part of upcoming projects. But it's just a creative space. Even when we're both there, we're like playing together. Most of the times I'm by myself. And what you said makes a lot of sense. The thing to me, the thing of like having to put everything away after painting for a couple hours and before finishing your piece, it's kind of a mood breaker. Like it's a buzz killing, hit buzz killer, because it's like on the other hand, like having the studio, leaving the mass the way it was, the same mind stage you finish the day, leaving the way it was, knowing that when you come back, you can just pick up from where you left off. That's priceless. Number one. Second, I work slow and I work in a weird pace. It's rare when I start and finish a canvas right away without having anything else started in between. So I'm finishing now a canvas that I started almost a year ago, and it was there looking at me, and I was just thinking, it's still not the time to finish that. I don't know why I'm not ready to finish that, but it's still not time. And then one day I look at that, now is the time. I know what's missing, and boom, 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 and then you finish. Like, and that's something that before I would have like that piece, like stacked among other unfinished pieces, and it is just more challenging, man. It's just like, so I'm fortunate to have that now, and I feel like it would be a shame not to make a show out of that and not to take full advantage of that. uh
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. And one more question I have with that is, you know, say somebody calls you, tomorrow, and they're like, "Hey, we want to, we love your work. We want to put a solo show out for you, um, you know, around this time next year." What would be your approach to like those first 5 steps or so you would take? It doesn't have to be a literal 5 steps, but like, what are those first couple of moves that that'll help you prep yourself for, for this journey? Do you just get to painting right away, or do you kind of think of some overarching theme? What's your approach?
Man, you know what? I'll go back to what we just said. I feel like my first approach would be fine. Let me revisit my sketchbooks. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
most. I feel like I've been preparing myself for a solo show for years on my sketchbooks. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
that uh, a lot of what you see will come out of that, and a lot will be created after. Will be created for that, and in 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 and because of that, like by revisiting the sketchbooks, I know the new ideas will come, and like by working on some old sketches, new sketches will come. And but that will be the very first stage. The second first stage is defining. It's based on, and of course, I will have a thread and to follow through, a storytelling to follow through, and that's what I've been already. That's what I'm saying. I've been been preparing myself for a solo show on my sketchbook because I've been using a lot of the physical aspects of the pages to see them as canvases and explore them like how I would approach a canvas or a painting surface, whatever that is. I love painting on wood board, so I mean, can be or not a canvas, right? But when I'm ready to paint a canvas, so I feel like the first would be revisiting the sketchbooks. The second one is okay, now that I know more or less what would be the first, at least the very first pieces, dimensions, how big or small I want to go with this or that. Like what are the fragments I want to take out of some pieces and make secondary pieces or something like this. And third, man, we're street artists. Like we naturally go beyond canvases. So to me, it's like how immersive I want it to be. I don't want to be on a space where canvas. I don't want canvases to limit my work. I want to explore the structure of the building, whatever the building is. Third, and connect to the previous point is experience. What do I want people who come to visit me, especially on the opening night, to experience? Like what do I want them to listen? What do I want them to, like to listen to? Like what are the sensations I want them to have while inside of the place? Like how can I optimize and boost what I'm bringing visually to make them experience in a better way, and of course, and that probably with the help of a curator, or how will I market it and how will I price it, and what are the like what are the potential collectors and buyers I can bring. Like I have my own collectors for sure, but like one new. I mean, it's a solid show. You have to, like you need people. You need to, like I want all my homies there. I want to drink and celebrate with all my homies, but I also want collectors. I want people to buy it. I want to, like I want businesses to buy and all that. I think these are the first few things I can think of. I hope I answered. I'm sorry, your question.
I mean, I ask on just because I'm curious about your approach, and I ask just for people who are like who might be in the same position and stuff like that and are looking to plan. And then I also ask for my own self too. I'm supposed to be doing something towards August of next year as well. So like trying to put some stuff together. But it's something I I did a solo show a long time ago, and I did it for myself. Like I did like my family helped me. Like my mom knew a friend that had like a barbecue restaurant, and he had like some side room that had some extra little wall space. And
I love that.
he was and like I put together ooh, I think I put together like it was 30 pieces. But some of them were small, some of them were like little canvases. I think the biggest piece was like 4 feet by 4 feet, big canvas, and
Yeah, pretty big.
and I put them. Crazy enough, I did those 30 pieces in a month and a half. It was like I think it was like late May, and the show was no, it was late June, and the show was August 6th, and so it was like little bit over a month, and oh my god, it was. I remember having a spinny chair, and I had
Uh-huh.
3 canvases on the ground, and I would just
I
paint.
love
And then whenever I got tired of that one, I would turn and I'd paint that one. And then whenever I got tired of that, I would turn and go to the other one. And I was just like a sprinkler, like throughout the night.
I love
It was
that.
crazy. But
See, I have 2 points to tell about that. First, it doesn't surprise me because you're fast. I'm not sure if you were always that fast, but you're fast. You were the fastest cats in the game. You know, like I'm always impressed on how fast you are, and I told you that a couple of times already, and you have a reputation of that, which I
mm.
have quite the opposite. I don't have a reputation, but yeah, of that. I'm and the other thing, I think that's so amazing. I love that drive. You know, like I love that, and you know, like it's so cool that you made it. Oh, I remember. My question was, why August at a time in August this year again?
That's just how it happened, which was crazy. And you know what's funny is that the solo show that I did with my family, it was 10 years ago. It will have been 10 years. Like that day will be, I think it's like 2 days off from 10 years.
Nice,
It's crazy.
nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Well, the so to me, my goal is doing in October because
Mm-hmm.
October. It's such a happy coincidence. October 12th, and honestly, I wanted that to be this year, but it didn't. It wouldn't work out anyways. October 12th is when I finished my first mural at EAV, the one I told you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And October 12th in Brazil is Children's Day.
Oh wow.
So there's no better gift I would give to that little Alex.
Yeah, that's perfect. Oh man, that's gotta happen. Has to.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. And um I had I mean just a quick check in too. How are you looking on time? I know we been going for a minute now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, we can go a little longer, whatever you feel like. I'll be hungry soon.
Yeah.
But up to you.
Okay.
I mean, if you have questions that you miss asking, I'm here. I'm good.
No, I was about to ask you about, if there were any places that, we still haven't quite covered, or just topics that you wanted to touch on before. Cuz I mean, we've gone through the questions I've had for you, and yeah, I've just been like, as I listen to you, I form new questions, so that's what I've been throwing at you. But yeah,
Bro,
we've covered a bunch of stuff.
yeah, but I think we're cool. I mean, one thing that I would be unfair if I would not say is that when I told the story of like first mural in EAV and then video drum and this and that, that would never happen if, and I know, I mean, that's a recurring point in conversations with other artists or in your podcast or whatever, which is like how embracing Atlanta art scene is and how amazing this Atlanta art community is. So I would never happen, man. I was not an artist. I was a random guy, relatively older than most of the people who were around doing that, coming from a different country, uh, like with a with a style that wouldn't actually match, like the other ones, and with no connections, and yet people were inviting me to do shit, and like we're always nice and like supportive, and like inviting me to be part of shows. I mean, I painted my first canvases, small canvases, because I was invited to be part of one show and the other show and the other show, and then same things with the murals and this and that only happens. I mean, the magic Atlanta has with this art community is fantastic. And I have to have a big shout out to this community. Like I told you, I know a lot of people. It's funny how I have almost as many art friends in New York and Miami as I have here, for example. And they're amazing. I mean, I have nothing bad to say about them at all. But I'm talking about communities, the way communities work, and I hear even from some of them is that I mean, you're close together, you see each other, but if you have your shit, you kind of protect your shit. You don't share too much, like and all that. I lived in Lisbon, man. I struggled there because people don't share their pie at all. Like to them, like if you're an outsider should be kept outside. Like you shouldn't. Like we won't share our piece of cake. Like and if you do something different, you're probably not so welcome. Here, everything is the opposite. Like if you're new to the craft, welcome, join us. If if you're new to like to the city, join us. If you're passing by, come join. Like it's magic and I am who I am. I do what I do. I became what I am right now, and hopefully I will become the person I wanted to be. I'm back to the city after leaving the city because of that. The main reason I come back is because of this community, and
Mm.
it would be stupid of me of not giving a shout out. And you're a big part of that, man. You're one of those people. You're a good friend. I love seeing your trajectory. I love seeing like you're growing as an artist. You're influencing the community, and just like many other people, I stayed out. I've been out of Atlanta for 3 or 4 years, and I saw the scene changing so much. Like people I knew already growing and expanding, and like spreading the rings. People who I never heard of. I came back, and they were there out there already painting, and a lot of new faces. So many talent, the amount of talent. We mentioned a couple when we were talking the other day. Like the female art community in Atlanta, man. What the fuck? So much good talent, so many different styles, and they're amazing. They work with each other. They protect each other. Like they push each other. And then you have the Latin artist community. You have like the Asian art community. It's just amazing. Like it's just amazing. It's just I'm taking this moment to give a huge shout out to the Atlanta art scene and art community, where I take a lot of live friends from the LGBTQ art community. Like it would be silly not to mention. Like it's just amazing. It's mind blowing. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like definitely it's very few, if any, communities out there, I'd say even in the world, like Atlanta's art scene is. Um
Yeah,
I mean, it's rare that you have so many experienced, just incredibly established artists that are like shoulder to shoulder with people who like, this is my first time out here, this is my third time out here, I'm at level 1, like zero experience whatsoever, and I'm sitting next to like a master, I'm sitting next to a vet in the game. and um
yeah,
and the fact that we're all so, I don't know what it is, um but for a big part of the community, it's like the egos just kind of get like leveled, where
yeah.
we're just kind of here. We're just, we're so welcoming and inviting. I feel like it's, some people have said that it's like the Southern hospitality feel going on. Um, but it's just like we just have that feel of like there's enough to go around, or like the more the merrier a lot of times, when it comes to
100%.
us, because there was time, I mean, the artist Jeremy Brown, the
Yes.
guy so I remember I was in college, I had a project where I needed to pour some resin, and only thing I knew about Jeremy Brown was that he did the resin and then like paint and then resin over it and paint over that, like the little layering. And so
It's a resin.
yeah, so I just sent him a message on Instagram. I'm like, hey, you know, I got a project. I'm a college student. I'm just trying to can you give me a couple pointers on how to pour resin or like stuff I should watch out for or whatever? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm actually gonna be pouring some resin tomorrow in my studio if you want to pull up. And I did not know this guy at all, and I knew he didn't know me, and yet he's invited me to his studio, and like, oh, okay, cool. So he had a studio in the Met. Pulled up over
That's the
there,
spirit.
and I mean, he had a mask for me and everything, and he's like, "Yeah, so this is how you start. This is what you're supposed to do." Yada yada. I'm sitting there watching, and he's mixing the resin together. He's like, "This is what you use. You can buy this from Home Depot. You can blah blah blah," and like he just walked me through a whole resin pour, like that, and I'm sitting on the side like taking notes and taking pictures of the products and stuff. Now I walked away from that. He didn't charge me no money. He wasn't. It was nothing. He was chilling. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how many times do you get that in other places? Like especially being like that you've traveled to different places. Like it's not to say that people are mean everywhere, but you don't get a lot of that
No,
in places, you
it's
know?
culture. I mean, you're telling this story just made me remember. I was last month, not 2 months ago. I went up to Boston to assist a friend, Sophie Tuttle, on a big ass mural there. Shout out to Sophie. And we were talking about it. I mean, there was a big name of the scene up there, big name, like an OG. And we were talking about, and the person needed assistance. None of us could go because we were working on her mural. And then we were talking about like how assisting other artists is seen in other places. And in most places, assisting other artists, even if it's bigger artists, uh, it's seen like downgrading in your career. And probably some people here may feel like that also. I personally don't, and I don't feel that's the spirit in Atlanta. I feel like we're very collaborative. We enjoy uh, helping and assisting and learning and exchanging experiences. I love it. Don't take like any ego on that. I recently, it's funny how the full circle goes. I recently assisted on a big project for Krista Jones, Jonesy. Shout out to Krista, love her, good friend. And as her project manager in a big project, and she was my project manager on another big project a couple of years back. So it's like full circle. It's like, and I learned a lot from her and on that project and vice versa. Uh, I assisted recently for Peter Ferrari. I mean, I think we assisted together for Benito, for Yoyocam in the past. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyways, I just feel like that spirit of exchange happens all, and you see like big cats of the scene assisting each other, bringing new people. Like I think I listened to the story of Leah having Killamari asking him to go up in the lift. Like first time I went up on the lift was Joe Dreyer, barely knew me, come and help, and like, I mean, man, I love that.
Hmm.
Made that never change.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of the one of the defining traits of Atlanta. Even people who come through Atlanta from other places, like that's the first thing they talk about when they meet the people in the art scene. They're like, "Oh, like y'all are different here, or y'all are nice, or y'all got this different kind of feel going on." Like I remember, even there was times where I've been helping Tommy on murals for years, like helped him all the time. And then like I remember I had a project coming up, and I was asking people, and and I don't know, I'd always seen Tommy as this like a like a mentor in a way, like cuz he taught me how to spray paint, like for real. Like I did some spray painting before I met him, but he taught me like the real way how to spray paint like efficiently. And so I learned stuff about murals and design and business from him. So I always kind of saw him as like kind of a level up, or like just like a mentor figure. And I remember um I couldn't find anybody to help me. And I had that same kind of mentality of like, I don't want to ask like the mentor. That like that's kind of I'm supposed to help him, but you don't really help me. I ain't gonna do that. And but there was a time I just I decided I was just gonna ask him because I'm like, this is a big project and I really want it to be good, and I don't really like nobody else can really make it. I called him and I asked him like, can you help me on this? And he was like, man, I'm so proud. Like I've waited for the day when you would ask me to help you on something. Like
I
I'd
love
love to assist you. And I'm like, what in
that.
the world?
I love that, man. Yeah, I think that's amazing, and that openness for that full circle to get close, it's rare. I mean, the ego is out there, like, and some people just don't have that openness. That's beautiful. It's giving back. I always say that we're all Frankensteins. Like, we are parts of the people we met in our journey, right? I mean, we are like all of that combined. And in artwork, man, I mean, I learned how to wrap up my rollers and save them fresh for the next days with Benito Ferro. Like some organizational skills I got from Krista, some like measuring skills from Joe, some like like and I mean so many like and when you travel also like like so many different, and that's how it goes. If you're not open for these experiences, you're just not living it fully. You're just not learning the whole thing. And I love that, man. I just, yeah.
hmm Yeah, you literally cut yourself off from what you can learn. That's something my granddad always taught me was like everybody in the world knows something you don't. Every single person. It doesn't mean like he's like some people have varying amounts of what they know that you don't, but everybody, there's something you can learn from every person you meet. And I always just remember that, because it's like, shoot, even if they're new, you
True.
don't know where they're here from. You don't know like what kind of life they were living before that, you know? And so they're thinking, oh, they're
And
just a new artist, so they don't know anything. No, they're just new to art. You don't know what they know though.
that's the beauty of this podcast, man. Every episode, I hear, like, even from, again, homies that I mean I've known for years, knowing about their life, like their past lives, is just amazing. It's and also explains a lot about who those people are, right? Like their artwork, their style, and everything.
I mean, that's the whole thing, man. Like I didn't know you worked for a fashion company, and I didn't know that you were that high up in it. I didn't know that you had done a rock band, and I know you said that you didn't get very far with it, but even the fact that y'all had a go at it,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
what? That's crazy. And so, yeah, it's part of the magic, man. Um, but yeah, in the spirit of that, um, we have a closing tradition on the podcast because it's the vertex, it's the point of connection, and I want to extend the opportunity for you to connect to any person, place, or thing in the world. And my hope is that with you putting this out there, somebody that watches or listens, will know the person or place or thing that you're trying to connect to. But whether that's a dream client or a friend that you've wanted to reconnect with after some time or whatever, um, anything you want to reach out to connect to.
Yeah, I do have. I mean, I know that with all the deepness, or with all the depth of your question, I would saying a dream client would be almost like too selfish or anything. But in my case, I'm proud of that. I do have a dream client, and it's I would love to work with UNICEF one day. I would
Mm,
love, which is the UN organization related to kids in the world, like
mm-hmm,
with kids in around the world, right? They do a lot of humanitarian work, but it's always focused on children, like
mm,
children who face violence, starvation, and all that. And they do beautiful projects all over, man, in Africa, South America, Asia, all over the world.
Mhm.
Uh, and I would love to collaborate with them and create something meaningful and impactful together one day.
Mm.
That's it.
What would you like to do? I'm curious. Like if they say they called you tomorrow and was like, "We're down to do whatever you want." Like what would you say?
I would say a series of workshops that lead to murals uh, in places where art is not out there. Like we are spoiled here.
So true.
Workshops with kids, for kids, and uh, uh, exposing them to art, to creativity, to craft, to creating, and making that, and the possibility of making that a way out of their situation, whatever the situation is.
Man, that would be a beautiful project. And I hope somebody knows somebody that can put you in contact with them. Mm.
Yeah, me too.
Mm.
That has been a goal, and that's probably one of the first time, if not the first time, in putting it out there.
Okay. Well, shoot. See if we can make that happen. I'm putting out the good uh connective energy out there,
Yeah,
all the good vibes,
yeah,
connective vibes. Um
awesome.
and now that you've been on the show and you can um you know, you kind of have a feel for the type of conversation we have. Um who would you like to see on the show in the future?
Are we talking local?
Anybody. And they
Oh
don't
man,
even
I have so
necessarily have to be an artist like a painter. Like they could be any creative, like musicians, writers, chefs, dancers, anybody, anything.
oh man, that's so. I mean, I know I will fuck it up because I will. I mean, as soon as I close this, the list of names would never stop coming. Like,
It's
and I
okay.
will feel bad. But anyways, I will say some local names. I would say, and of course, some homies and close friends that I you haven't talked to still. So I'd love to hear a little bit more of Benito, even though I know a lot about his work. Yoyo Ferro, Krista Jones, uh, also Joe Dreher. Who else? And I have man, I would love to hear some curators there also. Like you have Adam from Cat Eye Creative. You have even though he's also an artist, but I would love to hear his curator's perspective, or from Kayleen. I think curators would be cool. Uh, Artists, I think a cool segue would be artists from other towns who have ties to Atlanta. For example, shout out to my friend, my buddy Adam Fujita, Adam Fu from New York. I'm having his hoodie here, and just makes me think like he's been in Atlanta to paint a couple times. He recently came to a show opening, and I know he has a lot to say about Atlanta. Like some artists. One example of artists who live out of Atlanta in a big street art center, but know Atlanta enough to like to say more about what we just said, or the other way around. Artists who lived in Atlanta and now are somewhere else, and then you can make that connection, such as Yildiz, for example, David, right? Yildiz, who now live in Colorado. I mean, and amazing
Oh,
artists also.
I didn't
These
know
are a
that they
few
lived in
names.
Atlanta. Do they
Yeah,
live in
I
Atlanta?
mean, I met.
Oh,
Yeah, I
oh,
met him when he lived in Atlanta.
did not know that.
Yeah,
Dang.
yep,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, and cool dude too. Like definitely with a nice background story, because he also come from a Romanian family. Like so. I mean, you have layers to extract good material from there. And
Man,
again,
these are
I
all
mean, I'm pretty
great.
sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure when I turn off, the list will never stop. I mean, I'll keep texting you for 7 more days, at
No, it's
least.
all that has happened before. I've had people like still sending me suggestions like the day after, like, oh, and this person, oh, and this person. So that's perfectly fine.
Oh man, I talked about curations, and I talked about artist curation and people who build their own story. Patricia, uh, uh, yes, that
Hmm.
curates Nuestra Creación. Man, what that woman is doing, she's a, like she's, by not finding her way, she's building her own way. What she's building is beautiful. She's, like becoming a creator, a better artist, like, and all that. And I feel like she has a strong story to tell. And I think that's another name that could be brought to
Hmm.
your show. Shout out to
Absolutely.
Pachi,
It's really
Chia
like,
Pachi.
yeah, she really like built her own table. You know, that's
Man,
beautiful.
I tell her all the time that I respect her a lot because she found so many closed doors that she, first of all, she kicked and built her own door. Like, and she's doing it, man. And not only for herself, she's creating a platform to other artists that would probably never make that, would probably never make to the main stage, would probably never show in the big city, would never probably have their work exposed in a solo show in big stages in Atlanta. Like, and she's doing that. She's not only by receiving as many no's, she could, like, be greedy and want all for herself, but she's doing for other people.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, just another name that I'm glad came to me.
Yeah, yeah, these are all great suggestions. And yeah, definitely Yo-Yo Farrow was probably the only one that I was like already thinking of beforehand. But yeah, all of these are really good suggestions. So I definitely see what they're up to. See if we can get them
Awesome.
on here. Um
Yeah, I'll be
man,
I'll be watching them.
yeah. Man, thank you so much for this conversation. Like, for one, I already
Or
enjoy our conversations just at base. But, to be able to um to have you dive into your story and to get to learn more about where you come from, it does give me a lot more context on the type of work and the mission that you're on right now creatively. And it's so inspiring to see. I mean, there's so many things about the way you live your life and the way that can you conduct yourself in your artwork that I take a lot of inspiration from. And 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 I appreciate again that you're such a big supporter of the show in itself. And this was an episode I was anticipating for a long time. And I mean, did not um this did not it met my expectations. It exceeded my expectations. So, man, thank you so much.
of course, thanks for having me, and again, thanks for the patience for having me. You invited me, indeed, you invited me before, and I mean, just I couldn't make it at the time, but I as soon as I could, I would tell you, and that's what I did. I say, man, I'm ready. Let's talk. And I mean, same. This is like we went above and beyond, and we talked about many different topics that I mean, some things that I mean, I definitely never said to anyone that is not a really close friend. And I'm talking to a close friend, but I'm talking to and it's open out for a lot of people, and I know that. So and that also shows how you're becoming better interviewer, and how you're becoming how you're good at making your guests comfortable
Mhm.
to say, to tell their stories. So uh, good job on that, man. I'm proud of you.
Man, thank you. Thank you. Ah, man. Well, I guess that's all we got.
That's
And
it.
do you have
That's it.
any last questions or remarks for the show?
No, I feel like my remarks is like, if you be nice, like be nice. Put uh, if you have a creative work, put it out there. Like, don't close it up. Put it out there. The world deserves to see what you have to put it out. You know, like you have a dom, you have a gift, a blessing that is asking to be put out. You don't need to fill galleries. You don't need to, you know, like you don't need to paint big murals. You just need to put the work out. So do it and be nice, be kind. The world needs kindness. That's it.
Don't need to fill galleries. That's a nice one. I'm writing that down. That's beautiful. But yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, thank you so much once again, and shoot,
Thanks, Cam.
good luck with everything, and you have a great rest of the night. Thank you again for your time.
All right, bro. Thank you. Appreciate it. See you next
Yes,
time.
sir. All right, man. Thank you so much for watching the episode. One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is hearing about when someone resonates with something we said. It's truly the reason I continue to make these happen. Comment down below what stuck with you, and we can continue the discussion further. Also consider liking and subscribing. It helps me bring in more amazing creatives and helps me make this show better for you all every episode. Catch y'all next week.